Hey there, Real Estate Junkies. Before we dive into today's episode, we've got some game-changing resources to help you start buying and selling real estate on terms, the smart, creative way. Want to learn how to invest with little or no money down? Grab your free ebook, The 4 Game Plans, and discover the exact strategies we use every day. Get it now. The link is in the show notes. Looking for a complete step-by-step system to start making 3 paydays per deal? Check out the Quantum Leap System, our home study course packed with everything you need to close your first terms deal. Need a personalized strategy? Book a free one-on-one strategy session with one of our coaches. Just use coupon FREE3 at checkout. Ready to take action? Join the 3 Payday Apprentice Program and start working toward real estate success with direct mentorship. Want hands-on training with us? Spend 3 days at our In the Trenches Bootcamp, where we'll work side by side to lock in deals. And don't miss our biggest event of the year, QOS Live 2025. Connect with top investors, sharpen your skills, and take your business to the next level. Secure your spot today. All links are right below in the show notes. Click now and start building your real estate empire. Now, let's get into today's episode. Yeah, it's super important that you throw that out there because it creates credibility, number one, and then it creates confidence, right? You're accredited, so you're coming across the phone confident, and that's all it takes. It's just being confident. Like we said it last hour. You can say completely the wrong thing. You can throw up all of yourself and say the wrong thing, but if you say it with confidence, the seller doesn't know. The seller doesn't know your script, so you just
exactly.
Let's just come across confident. Welcome back to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your co-host, Rusty Ham, on the West Coast.
And coming to you from the East Coast, I'm Rick Abbiati from New Hampshire.
Coming to you live.
Still.
What's that?
Still
coming to you live. All right, so we have a warm-up game plan and cool down. Our warm-up attacks the 3 pillars of our community, which is mindset, skill set, and systems. Today we're going to talk about skill set, more specifically scripting, and then for our game plan, we're going to talk about the benefits of a lease purchase. It's sort of a hard sell, so we'll get into why it benefits sellers. Why would somebody do that? And then our cool down, we're going to we just have office hours, and there's a couple of people that are new that are afraid to get on the phone. So what should they be doing to just get started out, right? Just go for it. So our warm up, Rick, is scripting. We've had a few of these come through the pipeline, especially for new people, and it really has to do with, number one is confidence, right, and how you present yourself. But a lot of the sellers, because sometimes our questions tend to be investor type of questions. And so they ask you, okay, why should I trust you? Or who are you? Have you done deals before? They don't necessarily ask us anymore because we come across the phone confident because we're buying their home. We're not presenting ourselves as investors. We're buyers.
Yeah, you're not going to get those questions typically. In fact, I don't remember the last time I did get any of those questions. But no, you don't. If you're coming across confident, you won't get it. But as far as it's not just confidence, I always relate it to when I started working with my VA, and it initially sounded very scripted, like she was reading from a script. Question after question. And I told her, I said, Angela, talk to the seller. I know you're very personable. You get, family and friends, and sociable. Talk to the seller like you talk to your next door neighbor or family. And
Right.
she did. And everything just turned around when she did that.
Right.
So.
All right. So let me throw this at you. You're brand new and I'm the seller. You called me Rick. And I say, well, why would I trust you? Or, who are you? What is your scripting or response to that?
So my response to that would be, I totally get it. You don't know me, but however, we are accredited by the Creative Financing Real Estate Association, and we, between me and my partners, we purchased over 1,000 properties nationwide with over 90% success rate. And then just move right into your questions. Don't take any time after doing that.
Right. And so if you guys don't know, it's CFREA, right? And what's the acronym again? It's
Creative Financing Real Estate Association. And for those who are apprentices, you can say, I'm certified by the Creative Financing Real Estate Association. Associates can say, we're certified and accredited.
Right. And that's CFREA.org, not .com.org. And so look that up. And the way you get accredited or certified if you're an apprentice, you're not officially an associate. So you're certified, and an associate is accredited, is you got to go through the QoS home study course, and each module has some questions at the end. You just answer those questions. I think you can take as many times as you want. You can fail.
Sometimes the way the questions are worded, it takes multiple times. It's like,
Exactly.
okay, it could be this one or this one, and 50-50.
So once you pass those modules, then you'll get a certificate, and you'll get a thumbnail that you can put on your website, and people can click on that. And then also, did you talk about BBB? You did, right?
No, I don't. Sometimes I say that, sometimes I don't. That's not the game changer.
Right.
But you'll find if you come across confident when you say that, they won't dig any further, especially if you just move into the other questions. I'll give you a perfect example. I had called the seller. It was a property in Massachusetts, a duplex, and he was in Florida. And he proceeded to tell me right from the get-go, I'm an experienced investor. I have 9 properties that I have, that I own. And I said, well, that's great. I said, we're between us and our partners, we bought over 1,000 properties nationwide. He says, okay, so you know what you're doing. And it changed the whole conversation. There was no more of that. So it was back in my control.
Yeah. And then also the CFREA, it helps to, I'm brain farting. I'm sorry. I had something I wanted to say, but it left me. So, scripting wise, super important when you're new, that you present that to the seller. And again, Rick and I, have over time, because we're so confident and we know we can handle objections, fairly well, that rarely does that question come up. Like, who are you? Can I trust you? That type of thing. So it's very helpful. That's what I was going to say is, also when sellers tell us that they have offers from other investors, right? I see you smirking because
I was going to add that, and you took it right out of my mouth.
Yeah. So when they say, I have these other people that do the same thing, a lot of people will say, I've already talked to 2 people that do the same thing you do. What do you say to them when they say that they've talked to other people that do?
I ask them, are they accredited? Do you know if they're accredited? And a lot of times they'll say, what do you mean? I'll say, well, we're accredited by the Creative Financing Real Estate Association. And, I always tell sellers that I'm working with, be careful on who you're working with, because there's a lot of people who try to do what we do, but they're not accredited.
Right. Yeah. So perfect. Yeah. So there's 2 ways of using our accreditation through the CFREA Creative Real Estate Association, Creative Financing Real Estate Association. I always forget that financing part. It's super important that you throw that out there, because it creates credibility, number one. and then it creates confidence, right? You're accredited, so you're coming across the phone confident, and that's all it takes. It's just being confident. Like we said it last hour. You can say completely the wrong thing. You can throw up all of yourself and say the wrong thing. But if you say it with confidence, the seller doesn't know. The seller doesn't know your script. So
Exactly.
They just come across confident. Very cool. Let's switch gears to the game plan. And we haven't talked about lease purchase in a while. And to be honest with you, it's probably a good tool, a good strategy to use when you're starting out. But you and I both know that owning properties is a lot better for our business, right? So we prefer sub 2, which is very similar to the lease purchase. Just the title transfers, sub 2. And the lease purchase, the title remains in the seller's name. We're just clouding the title, and we're kind of partners with the seller. So sub 2, we're owning the property. Owner financing, we're owning the property, which is a lot better because tax purposes, it's better to own the property, right? Rather than just being a partner.
You got a lot more flexibility too. If the seller is looking for a down payment, then it automatically makes it either a sub 2 owner finance, or if they're looking for monthly payments against their equity, because you don't money down or make monthly payments to them on something that you don't have ownership of, typically.
Right.
There are exceptions.
Okay. So on that note, what is the benefits of a lease purchase, since we typically don't, I did a lease, one of my first deals was a lease purchase. And it was during COVID, right? And she had a lot of equity. It was our primary. And she wanted to get it sold, before the capital gains hit, right? So we did a lease purchase, 36 months. She didn't need her money right away because she was just moving close to the whole, I'm brainboarding all of a sudden, to the hospital because she was a doctor. So she wanted to move close to the hospital. So, she was just going to rent for a while until she found the house. So perfect situation for her. She didn't need her money right away, maximize her house. And she was able to, to move and get out without, and then I took over all the responsibilities. Give me another example. I think you described it prior to getting on the call here. Other examples of why it would be beneficial.
I had my first deal, like you, was a lease purchase because I didn't know better. I hate to use that, but it does work good in certain circumstances, but the seller had it on the market for a while, wasn't able to sell it. It was brand new construction, and he was a developer. So I was able to get it under contract on the lease purchase with a buyer within 30 days. But his main concern was, in doing these other properties, is having that mortgage sitting out there that he had to still pay. Right. So he just wanted his mortgage covered, the mortgage payment, which is what a lease purchase will do.
Right. Yeah. Lease purchase, you're just taking over the PITI and then any maintenance or repairs. But then we pass those maintenance repairs on to the buyer anyway. So we're technically just making sure that the tenant buyer is paying, and then we're directing that money into the seller's lender, right? We just get the login information. We just pay the lender directly, correct?
Yeah. And the other thing is the tenant buyer is responsible for all maintenance and repair as well. So it meets a lot of sellers' needs.
Yeah. So lease purchase, it could benefit also because the seller is, it's technically a lease, right? It's a lease agreement. So now that they're technically renting the property to us, so they get those benefits, right? They still can, get some write-offs or they get tax benefits of still owning the home and having a rental property. Yeah. So, and again, you can kind of hear in our voice, it's like, oh, lease purchase. Yeah, whatever. Yay. It's probably good, to start out with, because you're not committed, right? If something more to go south, you just give the house back, right? And and then the seller just keeps the house because the titles are in their name, the mortgage is in their name. If hypothetically, if we just said, our tenant buyers didn't cash out and we weren't able to sell, we can theoretically just give the house back, right? So, that for them, it's insurance, right? For us, we don't make as much. We don't have the flexibility, like you said. Usually, lease purchase is somebody that is it's owner occupied, and they just moved, so they need to sell it within that 3-year period to avoid capital gains. What other benefits other than kind of what we described? I mean, those are kind of the two major benefits, which is, they're able to move on with their life. They don't need the money right away, or it's a second home for them, and you're taking over their mortgage, which, helps them because it's not sitting there empty and money's coming out of the pocket, right?
Right. And it's also, they're completely, for the most part, free of any responsibilities on the property.
Right.
Because with lease purchase, we're taking on all responsibility for the property. We're not owning it, but we do take over all responsibilities on it. And you also want to make sure that the mortgage is being paid directly to the lender and not to the seller, because you could have some sellers, maybe they get in a difficult financial situation and they spend that mortgage payment on something else, and it puts your buyers at risk.
Right. So let's talk about that. Maintenance and repairs, right? So a lot of the sellers will say, well, what if they trash the place? Right? Because the mortgage and the title is still in their name. And so their biggest concern is, what if these people that you put in the house squat or trash the place? So what's your scripting on that?
And what happens with a tenant buyer, it doesn't really matter to them because their contract is with us.
Right.
So if anything does happen, we're taking responsibility for everything.
Yeah, they wouldn't know about it. That's what we tell them. If something were to happen, you wouldn't even know about it because we're taking over. We're responsible, right? So
Right.
if they squat, if they stop paying the mortgage, hypothetically, or if they stop paying their rent because it's a rent-to-own situation, if they stop paying, we're going to continue to make those payments to the lender. So the seller would have no idea that something's going on the back end. I get it because, they own the home still. The mortgage is still in their name. So I get, their big concern is, what if it's trashed? And, we get a large down payment from the tenant buyer for that reason. That's why we get a large down payment, because if something were to happen, we talked about last week, then we're able to continue to make those payments on the seller's behalf, and they're still good.
And a lot of times, if somebody, and I wasn't aware of what a lease purchase was, when you say lease purchase, my immediate thought goes to, well, I don't want a renter in there. You're dealing with buyers. You're not dealing with renters,
Right.
because they've got skin in the game. And if I have to, and it requires a little more justification for it, if they say, well, what skin in that game do they have? I'll say, well, they give us a down payment, which we hold on to as capital reserves, just in case something happens.
How come I don't get the down payment if I was a seller?
Because we're the ones that are covering everything. And if anything happens, what we're under contract to do is make sure that mortgage gets paid every single month, regardless of what happens. And you're cashed out on time.
Right. So some of our associates, that sounds good. If it's a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home, the mortgage payment is $1,500, $2,000, maybe $2,500. And so and you're going through that right now. I think your payment's $1,800 or something like that. So that's not a big deal. However, some of our associates get freaked out when it's $1 million home, right? And that mortgage payment is $6,500, $7,000, right?
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Year.
Yeah. And then and the way we as coaches describe it, it's all relative, right? Because in fact, the lower end homes, you don't get the 10% typically. We try to get to 10%, but a lot of times it's going to be around that 5 to 8 for a down payment. Now, you could get lucky, when you're trying to sell a house, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to get 10%. So let's use 500,000. If we get 10%, then we're getting, it's 50K. And you're holding that in account. You're not going to buy a Lamborghini with it. I don't think you can buy a Lamborghini with 50K. Let's say a F-150, right? Anyway, but you're holding on to that in case something happens, like we talked about, and then you have enough money for that $1,800, $2,000 payment. $1 million home with a $6,000 payment is scary, right? It sounds scary, but it's all relative because you're getting 10%. So you're getting $100,000 and that's sitting in the bank. So, that $6,000 payment with $100,000 sitting in the bank, it's, okay, for a couple months, you're bleeding out, $12,000, $18,000 out of $100,000. It's not a big deal because then you're going to sell it traditionally, or you're going to get another tenant buy in there and they're going to give you another $100,000, right? So,
Right.
that's why we say it's all relative. It is scary to look at that you have this huge payment lurking if something were to happen, but it's all relative, right? Because you have a large down payment sitting in your bank account that can handle those things.
Yeah, and as far as getting another tenant buyer in there, the second one, should the first one fail, that's what I'm going through now. My initial thought was, well, they voluntarily left after a year.
Right.
And it's like, I looked at, well, now I'm going to pay the mortgage. That was my first. And my second thought was, well, wait a minute. I get another payday one because there's going to be another down payment down.
Yeah.
So any down payment is going to just cover all those mortgage payments that I made plus some.
Right. And that's what I'm going through now, right? I talked about last week where mine didn't leave voluntary. I had to evict them. But, I had this payment lurking over my head. They trashed the place. So, I've had to, paint the house. I've had to put a new rug in, new carpet. And so I've had to come out of pocket, right? But they put which is crazy to me. They put $100,000 down 2 years ago to buy this house, and I ended up evicting them. They lost that deposit. They lost that down payment. Can you believe that? But it's sitting in the bank, and I'm able to make those repairs, and it's not killing me, right? Because I'm gonna sell it traditionally, and make some money off of that, right? Good stuff. Let's pivot to our cool down, Rick. We every week we talk about the ITTV, but we're not going to talk about the ITTV yet, or not a whole lot. But let's talk about the newbies in our community and what they should be focusing on.
Yeah, I think we all go through it. Nobody came into this business thinking, oh, I'm looking forward to making cold calls. I don't know, maybe you did, Rusty, but I did.
No. Definitely afraid of it. Yep.
It's, we all get hung up on trying to be perfect on the phone. As Rusty said, the seller doesn't know your scripts. And the best piece of advice I got when I first started was, if you don't know the answer to an objection or a seller's question, say, that's a great question, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. Why don't I do this? I'm going to be meeting with my partner later on today or tomorrow. And what I can do is get him on the phone, and we could do a 3-way call so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and that has come up a couple times. One in I think it was a high 6 call, and then recently just now in office hours. They're afraid to get on the phone because they don't know enough yet, right? They're afraid that someone's going to ask them a question regarding, maybe what a lease purchase is, the definition of a lease purchase, and they're not they know the concept of it, but they don't know how to answer it yet because they're brand new, and so they freak out, right? So you even said that in office hours. Get the scripts, memorize it, role play with somebody, or even just role play with yourself. You're talking to yourself. You say the script and then you answer the question yourself, right? You're the seller and the buyer. You can do that yourself. You can even, voice text it into your phone and then listen to it back, right? So there's ways to memorize these scripts. And so you want to get the basics. So on the first call anyway, Rick, right, is you're just looking for the basics. Like we're not getting into typically we're not getting into how the details of a lease purchase or whatever.
No, nothing with deal structures or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. So we're just trying to we're just seeing if they're even open to the idea. That's all we're seeking is if they're remotely open to the idea of doing something on terms. Right. Because again, we're looking, I wouldn't say a unicorn, but the sellers that we get on a contract, they have unique situations, right? It's not a traditional sale where they get a realtor, they sell it traditionally, they take their money and run, right? It's not that way. So we're looking for the non-traditional sellers that for whatever reason can't sell their house, right? And we're helping them out.
And I think, as you said, you get the scripts that's available in our QLS modules, and along with those scripts are commonly asked questions.
Yeah.
Keep those handy, very familiar with them. Once you become familiar with them, like you just said, Rusty, is role play. And, there's plenty of people that are open to doing role play with you.
Yeah.
Within the community. And once you just find out, don't worry about, and a lot of us do this. What if the seller says this? What if the seller says that? Don't assume what the seller is going to say, because if you assume it, it may turn out that way.
Right. Manifested.
You do manifest it. So don't just know that we're all here to back you up. And I guess that's where the ITTB comes in. I have to go to the ITTB. Make the initial call, and, don't delay it, and just, now I'm having a brain fart.
Sorry, it's contagious.
When you're putting stuff off.
Procrastination.
Yeah, that's the word. And we all do it. Everybody's going to do it. We know that. But, and that goes back to your why. It all comes back to your why. If it's strong enough, you'll get through that procrastination. And it's just getting on the phone and doing it. And, for the longest time, every time I sat down to do dials, I'd go, can I stay outside? What else can I can work on my REI Black Book or something, some distract. But it would take me about five calls to get into the groove and get comfortable every single time. And then once I got through five, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do five more.
Yeah. And that goes to what we talked about in the office hours today is, I was telling her, only 10 to 15% are going to pick up anyway. So if you make 5 dials, the odds of someone picking up are very low. So you're leaving typically 5 voicemails. And so that's what I was telling her. I said, that's how I gained my confidence is I would make the dial because it was scary as hell. But after a while, I knew that it was just going to be a voicemail. So I just would relax. And then once somebody picked up, then, you get nervous and throw up over yourself. But the confidence is knowing, okay, I'm going to get this voicemail. I'm just going to leave a simple voicemail. Hey, I'm looking to buy in your area, and, call me back if you're looking to sell. And you say that over and over and over again, then it becomes natural and you become more confident when you're saying it. And then you just take that next step, right? Which is when you get live and
if you listen to, we have, because we use Slack, which is available to everybody in the community. There's scripts and dialogue channel, which is calls that we put up there, live calls. And there's also, for those who are associates, have access to another training, which is live seller calls.
Right.
And I used to listen to those over and over and over again to the point that when a seller said something, I knew how Chris or Zach or one of the coaches would respond.
Right.
And after a while, that stuff sinks in.
Yeah.
And then you start coming across with confidence.
Yeah. And at some point you're looking forward to those objections because you're going to answer those. You're going to isolate that objection and respond in a positive or in a confident way. So good stuff. Yeah. We weren't going to mention ITTV, but we did.
Yeah. And where I was going to bring that in is that's where the ITTB comes in, because if you've made the initial call, you bring those to the ITTB and then we'll get on and do the follow-ups with the seller. So you'll see it all live in action. And then the next day we structure the deals for that.
Yeah. And when we call, it's our main goal is to get an appointment, right? Get them to go see the house. Then after they see the house, and we come back and we structure an offer. So yeah, good stuff. Yeah. So the next one is August. What?
4th, 5th, and 6th.
4, 5, and 6. Again, the first day is we make calls. Second day is we do deal structure typically it's based on the call the day before. And then the third day is business planning, right? Strategy. Very cool. And then we have our QOS live in Boston, October 6th and 7th, right? It's a Monday, Tuesday.
And it's going to be awesome, as always.
Yep, as always. All right, Rick. Thanks for hopping on. Take care, buddy.
Right. Good to see you.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.